Why MDMA and why PTSD? Why I understand why, but I want to hear you speak to why those are, paired in your studies.
Yeah. Well, it really, there's a part in acid test when Rick Dalman and I first met, and I approached him to ask some advice about how we could get some research doing and going. It turned out we were both interested in that. So we were really interested in studying a number of these different compounds for a number of different things. But we chose MDMA for PTSD at the time because it seems particularly well suited just theoretically. We submitted our first application to FDA in October of 2001. So PTSD wasn't very prominent in the consciousness then. The Iraq War wasn't happening. So, but we thought, since there are two things about MDMA, well, here's part of our thinking. Treating PTSD, treating people for the results of trauma, usually involves revisiting the trauma in psychotherapy. And there are kind of two areas of problem that keep that from working. One is that sometimes, quite often, people with PTSD, they start trying to process the trauma. They're so overwhelmed by emotion, by anxiety, that they can't do it. They drop out of treatment.
They're flooded, right?
They're flooded. It's even re-traumatizing, perhaps. So that's one obstacle. Conversely, people with PTSD often also tend to have a lot of emotional numbing, which is a type of self-protection.
Like the opposite of flooding, they're just shut down, walls are up, and they are denying.
Exactly. Yeah, which makes sense. It's a way of avoiding the very painful feelings. So it turns out that in that case, people might be able to talk about their trauma in therapy, but if they're not emotionally engaged, it just doesn't seem to be very helpful.
Yeah.
So there's this idea that others have described, the window of tolerance, or the optimal arousal zone, where there's a sweet spot where you're neither flooded and overwhelmed, but you're not emotionally cut off either. And that's what one of the ways MDMA seems to work is give people some time in that optimal arousal zone, or thinking of internal family systems terms. And I've talked to Dick Schwartz a lot about this. I'd say it's people suddenly have access to a tremendous amount of self-energy, and they're able to be unblended from their parts that are involved in the PTSD.